Yes, team, welcome back to another episode of the High Performance Coach podcast. I hope all is good in your world. So today I thought it'd be really powerful for me to now be able to take a step away, put pen to paper, and have a look at what are some of the most common characteristics and traits that we now typically see with the highest performing individuals that we now have the absolute pleasure to work alongside or we've now worked with previously. And when I say high performing individuals, I also don't just mean the individuals who are working with the greatest number of clients, who are making the greatest amount of cash and or are performing at the absolute kind of highest level athletically or aesthetically. We now believe that high performance is accessible to absolutely everybody. It's not what you have, it's who you are. And not only that, success is completely unique to the individual. And I think it's important that we really just get clear over that, because I think even for me previously, I felt as though that whenever I was looking at certain characteristics or traits of people, I was always just looking at the external rather than actually looking at the internal, and realizing that the C's that I'm going to go through today, I believe are now accessible to absolutely everybody. So we're going to break this down into 6 or 7 different C's that I've been able to put together just based upon obviously how I'm probably going to combine and create synergy with them. So first things first, character is always the one thing that stands out for us with these individuals. Character, we now believe, is how you do things. It's who you are. It's how you behave. It's how you think. It's how you feel. It's how you perform. It's you now living in alignment with your values and what's now most important to you. I spent so much of my time when I first got into the fitness industry pretending to be somebody that I wasn't. I felt as though I was performing for everybody else because that was how I fitted in the fitness industry. And in doing so, I felt as though that I was treading on eggshells, I was questioning my every move, and I was stopping myself from being able to really trust myself and really follow through, and allowing myself the ability to be able to own my vulnerabilities, insecurities, weaknesses, and also like what it is that I really stood for, what was important to me and why that was important to me, and also why I was doing things. Realizing that it wasn't about the external gratification and or validation or applaud, had absolutely everything to do with how I behaved and how I felt internally through the behaviors that I now embodied when nobody else was watching, when the door was closed. And we now believe that character is built through how you now behave when nobody else is watching, and you now doing things that are now important and are aligned to you, and you now staying congruent with those, which is absolutely huge. The second one is charisma. Now, charisma isn't being incredibly extroverted and being kind of loud and even necessarily having like super duper high energy and speaking at 1 million miles an hour like me. Charisma is allowing people to feel listened to, heard, and understood. It's about allowing people to feel safe within your presence. It's about allowing them to feel as though that they are able to get the very best out of themselves when they're now around you. And this also goes back to somebody that you would maybe look at that has the it factor. Think about who you now believe has the it factor. That now might be a celebrity, that now might be somebody you follow on social media. Like, what is it about them that makes you believe that about them, and what are the characteristics and the traits that they now have? And what I'll typically see with the individuals that I believe have got the it factor is exactly that. I feel connected, I feel listened to, I feel heard, I feel understood, I feel like I can bring my very best out. Obviously, when I'm in their company, I feel inspired by them. And I also feel as though that they can empathize, they can relate, they understand, and they also now get it. So charisma is absolutely huge. We now believe in being a characteristic of a high performer. Number 3 is certainty. Certainty on doing the do, who you are. The person with the greatest amount of certainty will now always win. And especially in this marketplace right now, the people with the greatest amount of certainty will have more people gravitate towards them, because it now really breeds safety. Now, certainty can only now come through you stacking the odds in your favor that you are who you say that you are, and you do what you say that you do. Theory is one thing, but practice and application is another. And it's having the capacity to now be able to fail forward fast, learn, grow, develop, adapt, and then iterate as you go, I believe, and recognizing and realizing that certainty is now something that's built through behavior. and also acknowledging that certainty will also not come and go, but will also shift and evolve because you're evolving, you're growing, which therefore means when you're shifting, you're evolving and you're growing, you're stepping into the unknown and you're stepping into discomfort. There's always going to be periods of times that you're going to feel as though like you're a little bit of an imposter, but that's okay. It's then about being able to lean back into the bright spots and being able to, once again, have that confidence and that trust in your own ability, because you now know that you've got to behave your way to success. You're behaving your way to a feeling. And so certainty comes through doing the do. It comes through actually owning your failures, owning your vulnerabilities, owning the challenges and the setbacks you've also now been through, and not just now leaning in and onto the successes. Because if you only do that, then you'll only now ever have the confidence and the belief in your own ability when you're successful and you're winning and you're growing and you're evolving. And if you have that thought process, then what actually happens when things aren't going your way, when you have had setbacks, when you have had challenge, and when you have had that perceived failure, and what is it you now start to believe about yourself within that moment? So being able to look at the behaviors that you now want to embody, because again, going back to the character, it's how you now do things, is the very thing that will now give you the confidence and the trust, even when you don't feel as though that you're getting anything back in return for the work that you've now been putting in. And the ability to have that delayed gratification, play a longer term game, and have patience, we now believe is absolutely huge, because every single individual goes through a season and cycle, or goes through seasons and cycles, very much like farming, relationships, the stock market, the weather. Hopefully the season of the winter and the cold and the wet is coming to a close. But it's about acknowledging that that happens in every single kind of like walk of life. And it's about knowing and understanding, whether that's now in business, whether that's now within body shape, health and performance. There's always going to be different seasons and cycles that you're now going to go through, but it's having the confidence to be able to turn up and do the do, put the 2 P's into the machine, and just now know that you're growing and it's on its way. And it's having actually that internal belief and having that ability to shut the door at the end of the day and now know that, yeah, I've given it my absolute everything today. That is the very thing that now allows you to build that momentum over the long-term game, which brings us nicely on to the word that we all commonly use that is a bit boring and is non-sexy, non-weird, non-wonderful and non-magical, which is consistency. And reality is, like you'll tell your clients, consistency is the difference. It's how you now turn up on the bad days. It's about making sure that you now don't post a zero. And it's about understanding that everybody can turn up on the good days. Everybody can turn up when they're motivated. Everybody can turn up when they feel like it. Everybody can turn up when they now feel good. Everybody can turn up when things are going their way. They're getting clients through the door. Training's feeling effortless. They're feeling congruent and aligned. But the individuals that can now have the resilience, the robustness and the fortitude and the tenacity and the grit to now be able to turn up even when they now don't feel like it and they're not getting anything back in return, is the very difference that will now separate them over the longer term play. And again, within those moments, it's about recognizing that you're not getting any applause, you're not getting any gratification, you're not getting any external validation, which then comes back down to, again, you, how you feel, how you want to be able to behave. And that is the very platform that I believe, again, gives you this kind of like inner confidence that almost allows you to feel unstoppable and allows you to be able to kind of trust yourself and back yourself regardless of the environment and or the situation that you put yourself in. So consistently good, not occasionally great, and being able to understand, where do I need to push, where do I need to pull? Inside the High Performance Coach, we believe that you can do it all, have it all and be it all. But with that, obviously, it comes a whole host of differing roles and responsibilities. When you're trying to manage how you are personally as a coach, as an athlete, and as a business owner. And it's about then understanding, right, okay, what are the systems, strategies, and frameworks I now need to put in place in order for me to now be able to protect myself? Where are my minimums and where are my maximums that I now need to put into play, which can now still allow me to turn up consistently? And what does that even now mean to you? Because ultimately, consistency has, I believe, an upper limit and also has a minimum standard that will be required, and it's being able to be dynamic and malleable with that, which is absolutely key. The next one is compassion and connection. Compassion and connection for yourself, and being able to obviously have purpose, the ability to now be able to look inwardly and have the opportunity to now be able to explore that for yourself, and having that level of self-care for yourself, which doesn't necessarily mean, bubble baths and whatever else. that can also now mean kind of fronting up and doing the work, but also giving yourself the space and the time and the ability to be able to applaud and praise the work that you're now doing, which is huge. And compassion and connection internally will then allow you to be able to enhance your compassion and connection with those that are then around you, which we now believe is the container that now allows you to create safety, acceptance, and allows people to feel not judged, which then comes back to the charisma piece, which allows people to feel as though that they can be their best and they can be themselves, or you pull out their best and they can then be themselves, obviously, when they're then around you. And for us, the compassion and the connection piece in any type of relationship, we now believe is the foundation from which everything else is then built upon. We've got to think human being first. We've got to think person first. And that now starts with you being able to own the vulnerabilities, the challenges that you've now been through, and being able to create that container which allows people to feel like they can talk, they can be open, and they don't now need to just act, operate, and behave a certain way. They now feel as though they can now well and truly be them. And if you think about who it is that you now trust the most in your life, it will probably be because you know the most amount about them. You know what makes them tick, what they like, what they don't like, the challenges they've been through, but you also know like some of their challenges, some of the hardships that they've now been through, and the space and the connection that that's then created as your relationships now developed and evolved. So exactly the same is to be said for you and your clients, you and your culture and your community you're building, and also then the prospects that you're now developing the relationships with through your marketing channels and on social media. Trust needs to be at the forefront of absolutely everything, which actually comes through your power and your ability to be able to tell stories. The capacity for you to be able to live and breathe what you say that you do, tell the truth, which is then going to allow you to have that authenticity, which allows that energy, I believe, to kind of really radiate through. And whenever somebody else feels as though that somebody else now gets it, you can articulate somebody's problem better than they can explain it themselves. That's really where that connection piece really comes from. And again, people will now buy from people. People now buy the coaches, not the coaching, most importantly. So again, that's whereby it now comes back down to us as individuals and having the potential and having the opportunity to put out who we are, which then gives us the potential to be able to connect with our audience and our people, and realizing that the more specific you can be, the more specific you can go, the more powerful that is. A lot of people aren't going to get it. A lot of people aren't going to get you. A lot of people aren't going to radiate. A lot of people aren't going to understand. A lot of people are going to potentially just swipe past and just think, meh, that doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't apply to me, or insert whatever it is that they're now going to talk about, or you believe that they're going to say. But it's about now knowing your people. And when you obviously can do that within yourself and understand yourself and recognize and realize that this is my story, this is what I live and breathe, this is what I stand for, this is what I want to embody, and this is now why this is important to me, and you have the power to be able to step into that, I believe the connections you can then create with your clients literally just takes things to a whole new level. Coaching now isn't transactional. Coaching is about building and establishing trust, safety, acceptance, a relationship, from which then obviously the result is then built upon. And the best results have always come through the people that we've now had the strongest relationships with. If I now look back and reflect over the last 13 years that I've been working alongside individuals, and I think the same to be said for people within the kind of professional sporting domain as well. And finally, is having clarity. It's having clarity over your story, your mission, what's important to you. Why is that important to you? Why do you stand for what you stand for? Why do you believe in what you believe in? What you don't stand for, what don't you believe in? What is the impact you're trying to have? Who is it you're trying to work with? Why would these individuals now work with you? What are you now passionate about? Where have you got results in areas and aspects of your life that you can now obviously coach, guide, and lead others to do exactly the same? And having clarity over who you are, having clarity over your little blue ocean in terms of the clients that you now know that you want to connect with, the types of results that you now want to get, and the people that you now know that you can help, we now believe gives you so much power because it allows you to go so much more narrow and deep, which then fundamentally comes back down to you now being able to have the space and being able to do the work, and then reflect and understand, right, okay, where am I going? What makes me tick? What now gets me out of bed in the morning? What am I inspired by? What do I feel connected by? What do I feel excited by? And how can we now follow that and use that? Because we now believe and feel as though inside the High Performance Coach that business should be fun. Working alongside the people you're working alongside should provide you with a huge amount of fulfillment and connection. And it's about now looking at, okay, how do I now gain clarity around what are the action steps, what are the needle moving activities, and what are the things that I now know that I need to do that will allow me to make the boat go faster, provide me with more fulfillment, more impact, generate more income, and allow me to build even more connection with the people that I'm trying to work with, so I can now really go and dominate and own my little percentage and part of that blue ocean that you now know will fulfill you and give you absolutely everything that you need. So a lot of C's, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of awareness around, okay, these are some of the typical things that we now see within the individuals that we now work alongside that we believe are doing incredible things in alignment with what's now important to them. And these are kind of characteristics and traits that we now can continue to develop, continue to evolve, continue to work on, can continue to now build upon. Becoming is always better than being. And I think it's about just giving yourself that space and opportunity to recognize and realize that your people, your clients need you exactly as you are today. And having the ability to step into that even more so can be one of the most powerful things that you can now do. So if this episode has been valuable, insightful, and beneficial in any way, shape, or form, I'd absolutely love it for you to share this with another coach that you know. And of course, if you have any questions or anything you want to ask or anything you ever want to go through, you know that my inbox is always open to you. Have an incredible morning, afternoon, evening, whatever you're up to, and I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode.